All right. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Today, it's an honor to welcome you to this important discussion. Our oceans are not just a vast body of water. They're the lungs of the planet, and they regulate climate, they provide food and livelihood for billions, and they sustain economies through trade and tourism. Yet as pressure on marine ecosystems intensifies, from shipping and coastal development to broader human activity, we face a critical question. Is regeneration even possible? The science assures us it is. And at the current rate, 10% or less of coral reefs globally will exist by 2050. But we have a very small window to push forward together to change that. We can reverse that course and, most importantly, put forward a positive path of regeneration, restoration, and sustainability for a better tomorrow. And today, in Saudi Arabia, we're doing just that. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia's marine ecosystem includes some of the world's most resilient and biologically rich coral reefs. They support extraordinary biodiversity, hosting more than 1,000 species of fish, and serve as a critical habitat for plants and marine life. And in order to protect oceans at scale, we must work together to bring together the stakeholders from the globe, from across sectors, and from across disciplines to create collective action. And that's why it is my absolute honor today to announce that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia will be holding the first ever Global Coral Reef Summit in 2026, bringing together global leaders, scientists, and investors to drive solutions for the protection and recovery of coral reef ecosystem. Under the Kingdom's role as the chair of the International Coral Reef Initiative and the Global Coral Reef Summit, which will be convened by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia through the General Organization for the Conservation of Coral Reefs and Turtles in the Red Sea. The ministerial-level summit will go beyond dialogue and focus on action and delivery, focusing on science-based interventions and elevating coral reefs as a critical component to climate adaptation, biodiversity protection, and sustainable ocean economies. And there's nowhere better to convene this gathering than in Saudi, where in recent years we've witnessed unprecedented momentum. The Kingdom's not just working towards restorations, it is part of our nationwide mandate. Under the vision of the custodian of the two holy mosques, King Salman bin Abdulaziz, and His Royal Highness Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the Saudi Green Initiative is our ambitious national initiative to combat climate change, improve the quality of life, and protect the environment for future generations. And the Kingdom is doing just that. We are undertaking ambitious efforts to protect our coastlines, waters, and reefs, and through the SGI, the Kingdom has pledged to safeguard 30% of its terrestrial and marine areas by 2030. Today, we've grown from just 3% being preserved to almost 20%. So 10% more, and we're almost there. In November 2025, 2 new marine protected areas were announced, expanding marine protections and positioning Saudi as a leader in the regional conservation. Our National Center for Wildlife oversees marine biodiversity protection, while the National Red Sea Sustainability Strategy integrates ecological preservation with economic development, emphasizing sustainable tourism as a national priority. And I'm so proud that there are so many initiatives and innovative examples of blue conservation, such as the recent partnership between Ebb Carbon and the Saudi Water Authority to deliver a pioneering desalination decarbonization project, which aims to convert desalination brine into valuable products while also removing CO2 from the atmosphere, generating carbon credits. And as the founder of WAVE, an initiative with the Future Investment Initiative dedicated to accelerating ocean regeneration within one human generation, I invite everyone to visit Ocean Central, which is our roadmap designed by our chief scientist, Dr. Carlos Duarte. The information is available at oceancentral.org. The platform aggregates data, storytelling, and visuals to provide actionable insights, acting as a starting point for local and global actors alike. And it asks the question, what do we not know? What do you know? And how can we collaborate? These actions demonstrate how targeted national strategies can drive scalable and tangible regeneration, inspiring broader international collaboration. And as Saudi Arabia's chairmanship of the Global Coral Reef Initiative, it includes 45 member states, which covers more than 75% of the world's coral reefs. This is an opportunity to make real impact together and to create a better future for the next generation. So today, I'm told we are at the Blue WEF, And that is very, very exciting. And I invite everyone to get involved, be stewards for a more blue future, and I look forward to welcome everyone to Saudi Arabia for the first ever Global Coral Reef Summit in 2026. Thank you. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to let you know that today's session is going to outline the imperative for a coordinated global response in protecting the central role of oceans in a global climate, biodiversity, and economic systems, by examining solutions from data and technology to sustainable industry and community-led initiatives, and exploring models for effective multi-stakeholder collaboration and partnership. We'll explore the most effective means for a global call to action. And our guests today, I have Ray Dalio with us. We have the amazing Peter Thompson and Ralph Shami, who are going to enlighten us not just with what they do and why their work is so compelling, but why should we all care? What can we all do together? And what I am asking you today, once you've heard what they have to say, is to join the Army of Blue, because we need you. And so, Peter, if I may start with you, beyond climate regulation and food provision, what are the most critical yet overlooked ways oceans support global systems and human societies?
Okay, thank you very much, Royal Highness, and thank you for that announcement about the ministerial level Global Coral Reef Summit to be held in Jeddah. This is a critical meeting. Why? Because anybody who's read the IPCC report sees that coral will go extinct mostly extinct, once we pass the 2 degrees global warming level, and we're fast heading towards that. I must say, as a Fijian, with every one of our 350 islands surrounded by coral, I cannot imagine that future. And the Coral Summit will, of course, be looking into the science behind that statement that coral is in danger of going extinct. So we'll have the best science available at that, and I'm so glad to be working with the Saudi government to make this happen. It's going to be as I say, a pivotal meeting. My mantra is no healthy planet without a healthy ocean. And the ocean's health is currently measurably in decline. And you can basically take all the indices to show where that decline is happening. And obviously our job is to turn that decline around. It's a long game. It's not like geopolitics, short game stuff, which goes like this, as you've no doubt seeing in all the headlines. This is more of a long game. That decline has been going on for a long time, and it's going to take a long time for us to turn it around. Think ocean warming, think ocean acidification, think deoxygenation, think overfishing. It's all there, and that all takes time. The good news is that we are starting to get the results of the awareness that's been built up over the last decade since the inauguration of SDG 14 in 2015. This month, what came into force was a thing called BB&J. If I make that simple for you, the High Seas Treaty. It came into force this month. And that means for the first time in human history, the high seas will have effective governance. And that is obviously a huge step forward. One that most people haven't heard about, at the WTO, we've been working for years to get a ban on fisheries subsidies. What are these? These are $20 to $30 billion of public monies being spent every year to finance the global fishing fleet to go out and do illegal fishing and to chase diminishing stocks of fish in the ocean. I mean, it's sort of human madness at its best. The good news is the first part of the WTO agreement to ban such subsidies has now been ratified. And that's to ban subsidies which help the IUU fishing, and that's illegal fishing, where we were paying people to come and steal our own fish, right? So that's now been banned, thank goodness, but we're now working on the overcapacity side, and I think we'll get there. If you look at something, progress is boring. Sorry if I'm boring you, but sustainable ocean plans. This is one of the big successes we're achieving. Nations all around the world now are taking this on. This has come out of the work of the Ocean Panel, 18 heads of government, serving heads of government who sit on this panel. And the Sustainable Ocean Plans are basically within your national jurisdiction, what are your planning procedures for all that water that you've got? You know, a country like Fiji, many times our land area. We've got plans for what we do on our land, but only now are countries waking up to the fact that we've got to have sustainable ocean plans. And eventually we'll get one for the high seas as well, thanks to BBNJ. So all of this, the momentum of it all has come from SDG 14 and the UN Ocean Conferences, which are held once every 3 years. We've now had 3 of them. The last one was in Nice last June. The momentum which comes out of these conferences. And these are very serious conferences. You know, in Nice there was over 65 heads of government present, about 110 ministers, and thousands upon thousands of people present there, all from the ocean community. The momentum that comes out of those gatherings is immense. So that's carrying on now to Korea in 2028. The UN General Assembly has mandated that Korea and Chile will be the co-hosts of the 4th UN Ocean Conference, and that's what's keeping this momentum going, those triennial meetings. So all in all, I think we're in reasonably good shape to turn that decline around, but the decline continues, so la luta continua.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. So, Ralph, Peter gave us the UN Secretary General's special envoy point of view of oceans. You are a White House advisor, special advisor on nature finance and blue-green futures. You're also, I'm very proud to say, the chief economist for the WAVE, the program that I work with you on. Tell me today how oceans can be treated, you and I talk about this all the time, they're treated as an environmental issue. But how do we take the value of healthy oceans directly and translate that into a global economic stability conversation and a security conversation? How do we take that journey?
Thank you, Royal Highness. In fact, the living ocean is treated as an environmental entity, but the dead ocean is treated as a commodity. In fact, if I may be more bold, anything we can kill, we can price. But what keeps us alive is treated as an externality. How absurd is this? Yeah. Meaning, kill the fish, it has a price. Extract from the ocean, it's priced by the market. Anything dead is priced. So the ocean, the dead side of the ocean, is very well priced by the markets, and Ray knows all about that. But the living side of the ocean that's keeping us alive is invisible to the economy. When you look at your dashboard, as I'm a professional economist, you don't see the visible side of the ocean, the regulating side of the ocean that regulates the climate, the ocean that basically protects the coastline, you know, the mangroves, the seagrass, the salt marshes. They only have price when they're dead. They do not have a price, and that is the problem. Because then, when you look at it that way, then the economic behemoth, the platform on which all the economies are built is purely from an extractive point of view. So you keep extracting, and this ties with Ray's great acceleration. You keep extracting with impunity, and our ability to extract is outpacing the ability of the ocean. The ocean is a living system. It has its own ability to regenerate itself. But when you exceed that ability to regenerate itself, you tie into what Peter is saying, which is the demise of the ocean. And I don't see how humanity will survive if the ocean dies. And if you want an example of a hot tub, go look at the Dead Sea. It's called Dead Sea because it's dead. There's nothing in it. There's no life in it except the microbial part. But there's no plants. There's nothing. And yet, because it's dead, it actually has a price because you can go there and do tourism. So in death, it has a price. But the beautiful ocean that connects us all has no price. And this is what we need to change. And we can discuss how we change it. But I'll give you an example. There's as you mentioned, Your Royal Highness mentioned the Red Sea Initiative. In the Red Sea Initiative, there's a big project on mangroves. That mangroves protection and restoration is worth, at least in present value terms, over $1 billion. Just but protection and restoration of the mangroves of the Red Sea in the kingdom. Bahamas is sitting on 30% of the total mass of seagrass in the world, 150,000 square kilometers of seagrass. Just to give you an idea, all of Spain is 1,600 square kilometers of seagrass. Bahamas has 150,000. How much is that worth in carbon sequestration alone? in the billions. But when you have healthy seagrass, you have healthy fish stock. When you have healthy seagrass, you're saving off flooding. So you can add all of these things, and suddenly the ocean living for itself, not as a resource for humanity, but as a source of life, has a financial value. So the big question for all of us is how we take that value and we translate it so that the markets can embrace it. And you bring then conservation with the markets. They partner together to create a new asset class, the living ocean.
So if seagrass can't be viewed by those who are not interested as valuable, we have to shift the conversation to say, if a storm hits a coastline and there's seagrass, there's less damage to the house, which then tells you that house, where you have a loan against it, a mortgage against it, there's a financial interest to that. If I save the seagrass, I save the house, I save the family, I save the economics of that environment, I save the bank from people defaulting, and there's a direct linkage all the way up and a map that goes out. So I think the point that Ralph's trying to make is there is economic value. It is not simply just the environmental value. And until we begin to translate that conversation, the buy-in of the extended community and the ecosystem of the business world isn't going to really care as deeply as we want them to. So perhaps we need to change the way we're addressing this and talk about the environment in business terms. Ray, you're one of the most prolific businessmen. You have the ability to do anything in the world, and yet you've chosen to give your time and your energy to this cause. Could you tell me, based on your experience, what is the greatest gap between the technological potential and the on-the-water implementation? How do we bridge it? And what are you doing about this?
I think you said it so well. The ocean is our greatest resource. It's our largest, it's all nature and so on. And it just happens to be under the water and we don't see it. And that's the treasure. So in my experience, when I was growing up, Jacques Cousteau had a big effect on my life. I watched it, I saw it, I cared about it. And when I got to be in a position where I could do something about it, I built an ocean exploration ship to enable scientists to do exploration. And that began a journey that I would say has brought me for the first time at this moment to optimism of how we've been working together and what that means. I don't think it's recognized that how long we've been working together. And I just want to say that His Royal Highness and what Saudi Arabia has done together has been immense. My ship, and Ocean X is the name of my initiative, if you're interested, has spent a great deal of time in the Red Sea and then beyond, the creation of Ocean Quest, which is the initiative in Saudi Arabia for not just Saudi Arabia, but for the world in this initiative. And the partnerships that we're creating have, for the first time, brought optimism to me. And it's for the reasons that we're talking about. Because now, and it starts with that awareness. You have to have the awareness and love. So what Jacques Cousteau was not just the exploration, but he showed it. So my initiative, or our initiative, Ocean X initiative, is both to enable that exploration that hasn't been seen, and then to show it. So on Disney Plus, for example, there's a 6-part series that you can go on and you can see this exploration happening, and the media part of that and going is, and in the, we talk about corals. I'm so excited that you're putting together this coral conference to bring together the forces, because when we were in the Red Sea, we discovered 1,000-year-old corals that are unique in that they can thrive in hot temperatures, in waters and so on. So now we're exploring the possibility of using that for regeneration all around. So when I look at this, I think it, first of all, has to be a global initiative. It has to be united. And I think that that's what today's session represents, and that's what's happening, the reaching across. It has to have the awareness. And then it has to, with that, it has to have the then economic benefits as well as the caring, because it's that ecology that you're talking about. And that has to do with fishing. It has to do with care in various ways. But I would say that this is the first year or two, just recently, that I'm optimistic about the attention being given to it because it was ignored, the attention and the actions that are actually being taken in the ways that you're describing here today.
Wonderful. Peter, we're talking about optimism. We're talking about people waking up and realizing what we need to do. But from your point of view, in your career, what are the most critical barriers to scaling this community-led and nature-based solution mindset? Because while we can orchestrate what we want from the business level, from the government level, how do I get people to hear what we're doing and take that sense of ownership?
No, it's a very good question. If I could just riff off what Ray was saying first, I'm not sure if anybody realizes that it's obviously a very rough estimate, but we only know about 80% of the scientific properties of the ocean, which is incredible, really. I know we're terrestrial mammals, but it's just amazing that we know so little, actually. If you put a bucket down in the deep, deep ocean and pull it up, you're going to discover a new form of life, most likely. So I want to recognize what Ocean X has done, because we're in this thing called the UN Decade of Ocean Science. It's seen ocean science go from, a slow line like this into that over the space of what it started about 2016, I think it was 2017. And so ocean science now is never before in human history have we had this kind of investment that things like the Ocean X expeditions are producing for humanity, new species all the time. And more importantly, understanding how the ocean actually works, because it is much more complicated than we imagine, this beautiful thing that we look out on. So to answer Her Royal Highness's question, I think the key here is ocean literacy. How many of you were taught about Prochlorococcus, for example, when you were kids? I certainly wasn't. And yet Prochlorococcus supplies 20% of the oxygen in our biosphere. Isn't that more important than learning about giraffes and elephants? I think it is. And now that I realize how important it is. But, I'm not blaming our teachers because they didn't know about Prochlorococcus either, probably. But blue literacy, ocean literacy is the key to it. We have to, not only in our primary schools, secondary schools, and universities, but through our societies, we need to bring that in. Now, I'm happy to say that UNESCO IOC has a blue literacy program. They've been working very hard on this. Brazil actually is the first country to adopt what's called the blue curriculum. UNESCO sort of built this blue curriculum up. Brazil last year actually adopted it. It's now being put into place there. But I think every country should have a blue curriculum in their teaching system. That's how you get it across, I think.
Wonderful.
May I add to that? There's knowledge, and then there's emotional love. And I think that what Jacques Cousteau helped us understand, helped me and many people understand, he gave us the emotional love. Yeah. And there are series like Aquanauts and such things that even attract my grandchildren are watching these things. Yeah. I don't want to go on at length. I know I'm interrupting, but I think that kind of awareness that produces the emotional love in media is very important too.
Yeah.
No, it's critical, but Ray, you work not just with the kingdom. You have these amazing partnerships with countries all around the world. I'd love for you to tell us about those relationships, those partnerships. I know your boat you go to Indonesia, you travel all around, and you take students with you, you broadcast, you put the love out there. How are you translating what you're doing to convince countries to support you and what you want to achieve? And how are you able to impact other members of the business community to say, this is how it's done?
It's really just so simple. It's just the way we've done it in Saudi. But it's right, in Indonesia. Indonesia has the greatest underwater biodiversity. So President Prabowo explained to him, you've got the greatest underwater biodiversity. You don't even know what's there and how to manage it. And then, and it's thrilling. It attracts tourism. It's so good for the country. And then to put those together and do those missions, and then to show it, and then also to do it in partnership with you and so on, because we together can do those things. So now we're going to have an ocean summit and the creation of Indonesia as an ocean center. Okay, and what does it take? Really, nothing in comparison. So it's a shared idea, and then actually then delivering it so that when everybody sees the media and falls in love with it and gets what there is underneath the sea and what that all means, it's easy, really.
Ralph,
Yes.
tell us, has it been easy for you? You founded the Blue Green Ocean Futures, and your goal was to bridge global capital with place-based solutions for water, climate, nature resilience. Given what we're listening to today, what does it take for these partnerships to genuinely translate international resources into impact on the ground? How do we create more rays?
Well, if I just can finish the thought process that started here. So there's the knowledge and there's the emotional side. But people can sometimes get the knowledge and feel emotional, but also feel helpless. So you need to create agency. I need to feel that I, individual, can do something about it. It's almost like you want them to read the story and feel moved, and then there's a button that says, here's I can become an equity holder in Mother Nature. It's that mechanism. Now, when I started this, I was sitting with a bunch of scientists in a boat in Baja on the Mexican side, in the Sea of Cortez, and they were telling me about the blue whale, and suddenly blue whale. I'm an IMF mission chief at the time. I had spent 25 years at the IMF. I knew nothing. I was a Jacques Cousteau, huge fan of Jacques Cousteau. I knew nothing about the whales. And then this magnificent 100-foot blue whale surfaces next to me. I was like, oh my God. I mean, the first thing that appeared to me is this emotional side is, where have I been? How can a creature this magnificent that I didn't know about? And I thought I was, well-educated person. I was completely illiterate in that field. But next thing is the science. What the scientists told me at night is that whales sequester carbon on their body. And whales, through their fertilization, they fertilize the phytoplankton. And the phytoplankton is the lungs of the planet, of the ocean. The biological cycle of the ocean starts in the phytoplankton. So this was the science that was saying the whales capture carbon through their body and through the fertilization of phyto. Now, I'm a financial economist. First thing I said, oh, has anybody valued that service? You see? So now you have an interdisciplinary discussion between a scientist and a professional economist. And they thought, the scientists thought I was crazy. They're like, what? I said, well, I work for the IMF. The IMF pays me a salary, right? I provide a service. They pay me. Here's a way of doing a far more important action than I will ever, which is she's helping to regulate the climate. If she could speak our language, because they do speak a very sophisticated language, they'll say, first of all, please stop killing me. I'm saving you. And second, hey, Shami, you get paid. Why don't I get paid? So can we value her service? And they thought I was completely nuts, and I was still at the IMF, and my colleagues at the IMF thought I was nuts. And I went out with a bunch of colleagues, technical colleagues, and we actually valued the service of a living whale. It's $2 million from just carbon sequestration. Meaning this whale frolicking freely in the ocean, as Jacques Cousteau used to show us, the ocean living for itself, has tremendous value. Why? Because in death, in some countries where they unfortunately still eat whale meat, the whale was fetching 40,000. That was, for me, was like eureka. And suddenly you realize, okay, so you're taking something that is nature, you're saying, but this nature living for itself, not as a resource for humans, living for itself, is incredibly valuable. And people like Ray in the markets will say, hey, Ralph, you're a financial economist. What technique did you use to value this? And I say, Ray, I used techniques that you and I know extremely well in finance. How do we value any asset over her lifetime? Pure techniques that the markets, suddenly now you're bringing, because you're asking me, how would you do this? You bring the markets, you speak the language of the markets. What scientists did for the longest time, they spoke a language of science. But you need to, if you want to bring people under the same tent, you have to speak their language too, because without the markets, we cannot save nature. The Paulson Institute just issued their latest report. They said we need $1 trillion a year to save nature. Where's it going to come from? Philanthropy is this much. Governments are distracted. We need the markets to partner with conservation to save nature and thereby save ourselves. So we need to speak their language. We need to tell them, you have an interest in nature. Forget philanthropy, forget altruism, forget all that. You have a value proposition in the living nature. That's how we do it. Seagrass, so this is worked with Carlos Duarte. In the Bahamas, right, in other countries, seagrass is worth, let's say, billions of dollars. How? We're using market techniques. You can start with carbon, but you can do biodiversity, you can do nature, whatever it is. But the science is now telling us secrets that we didn't know before. So everything has to be predicated on the science, but then we bring experts from other disciplines. We work across fields, right? Because we always used to be in silos. Conservation, I was in the markets, some people in academia. It doesn't work this way. Nature needs all of us because nature has everything in it. If you allow me just one extension, just quickly. Think of a mangrove. I may own a mangrove forest, so it's private property. Okay? So in the language of economics, it's a private good. But that mangrove is sequestering carbon. So it's helping to regulate the climate. That's a public good. But that mangrove is also increasing the stock of fish. That's a common good. So in this beautiful mangrove, you have three goods. Now, the markets, this is Samuelson's Nobel Prize in 1954. He said, when you have a public good, the markets can't price it, by definition. Okay, so which means markets can price the flow, but they cannot protect the stock. Now, how are you going to protect the stock? These are the initiatives we're talking about. It's when the governments come in and say, yes, we need to work with the private sector to protect the stock. And suddenly you have what we always wanted to have, which is a PPP. Yes. Private-public partnership, not only within a border, but across border, which is what we're discussing here, is this global effort. This global conversation that is way, way behind, that we need to speed up very quickly if we are to save the ocean and save ourselves.
So, Peter, you have this conversation from the halls of the United Nations, and we're now at the World Economic Forum. And Ralph and Ray have given us the economist's point of view and the passionate investor's point of view as to why this is critical. What can we as a collective here do to support you to take their conversation and give you the armaments that you need to create these PPPs, to create these mandates? What does it take? We're at the WEF, you're at the UN. How can we help?
Okay, well, first of all, the Saudi government is helping by putting on this global coral reef summit. I mean, this is timely, has to be done now. The summit is about science, it's about policy, and it's about funding. So those three pillars are where we're putting our attention. So first of all, thank you for that. We have to bring people together to confer the best of our people from around the planet and work out what we should be doing. I would mention one area where people can get involved, and Your Royal Highness, you're one of the Friends of Ocean Action, and the Friends of Ocean Action, which I have the honor of co-chairing, was responsible for launching the 30 by 30 Ocean Plan in Nice at the Third UN Ocean Conference. Now, why do I mention this? We have been told by the best of our Earth scientists that if we don't protect 30% of the planet's biodiversity by 2030, we're going to see a cascading away of millions of species of life on the planet, which eventually will take Homo sapiens with it if we don't protect 30% of the planet. So Friends of Ocean Action, we realized that we had to do something in the ocean to make that a reality. So we put together a report. It was quite a costly report, but we got it done. We launched it. Mark Benioff launched it for us at the UN Ocean Conference as to how we can achieve that 30 by 30 in the ocean. And so the implementation phase is underway now. So all of you have got connections with NGOs or governments. Everybody should have a finger in that pie. Everybody should be involved in a marine protected area in some form or another. And that applies from the Antarctica up to Melanesia, where I'm very active in terms of getting MPAs from one end of Melanesia to the other. I firmly believe that with BB&J allowing us to have MPAs now in the high seas, that we are going to get this 30% of the ocean protected by 2030. It's still a very big ask, but you asked me what I would ask the audience. I would say, go home and think about how you can support 30 by 30, because it's an existential matter for us all. And I would conclude on 2 points. This is just a personal thing. I'm motivated by the continuity. I do all the work that I do for my 4 granddaughters. I mean, it's very selfish of me, but this is what I value, the continua. And happy to say they're all swimmers and divers, by the way, my granddaughters. But I think that is something I leave with you as well. Think of your children and grandchildren and what we are putting on them with the way we're going at the moment with this sort of 2 degree, 3 degree warming thing that we're on at the moment. The other thing my last point would be that what I venerate most on this planet is the hydrological cycle. It's not the ocean, it's the hydrological cycle. And here at Blue Davos, that point is being firmly made. I've just come from a freshwater conference that Matt Damon was leading just down the hill. The hydrological cycle is what shaped where human beings live on this planet, and it is what will shape where we're able to live in the future. Because what global warming is doing is changing the hydrological cycle. That's why we're seeing these rivers of water coming from the sky and causing these terrible floods where they've never happened before. That's why we're seeing droughts happening where they've never happened before. This is a disruption of the hydrological cycle through global warming. And then what happens when the rain falls on the land and goes back to the sea? It's going back with all that pollution of chemicals, of microplastics. And what's that doing? It's polluting and killing our coastal ecosystems, but it's also getting into the shellfish and fish, which we then consume and cause toxicity to ourselves. So that hydrological cycle, venerating it, making sure it runs the way nature always intended it to run, keeping the integrity of it, that's what I would like to leave with you.
So, Ray, as the business leader in this room, what can the business community and the investment community, what 1 or 2 things could they do that you feel would be just so impactful, easy to achieve? What's your ask of them?
I think we have to be realistic about how the business community is motivated, and it's motivated by profits. And so we have to accept that, and then with that, understand that a big impact can have through profits by certain activities such as venture capital. I'm considering setting up a venture capital fund for the purpose of ocean, double bottom line kind of investing. A good example of that is Bill Gates' Breakthrough Ventures, okay? So when you have a double bottom line, Breakthrough Ventures, it was for climate and finding different ways that you can invest in that and make success. He started to prove that could be made, and it started to attract capital. You have to say, where is the capital? Where is the money? And the money is in, for example, sovereign wealth funds and so on. But they have a responsibility to bring money back to take care of their people and so on. So I think that thinking about the double bottom line is going to be the vehicle which we're going to be able to make more more money coming from their choice. Other than that, you're then having to deal with policies. There are certainly a lot of policies that can be done in a symbiotic relationship. For example, in global fishing, okay? The capacity, the problem for overfishing, which is terrible, is basically enforcement. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of corruption associated with this. In other words, just the legal system. I can say that progress has been made of putting cameras on boats and so on to be able to see that. But then the capacity of those entities essentially to get past that, because their legal systems themselves are not being enforcing that, and the element of corruption. So I think that when we're dealing with that element, if the governments were to take more active roles in those types of things, they could have a dramatic impact. So I think it's those kind of practical actions that you're not going to get there by sort of saying it's good to do.
Ralph,
Yes, sir.
speaking on the we're not going to get there if it's just good to do. We're working on a project. I reached out to Professor Carlos Duarte and I said, if there was one thing I could help you with as the wave for oceans, what would it be? And he said, Rima, please help us get a quieter ocean. And so that's how I met Ralph. I said, Ralph, how do I help get a quieter ocean? Why do we want to do this? What's the call to action, Ralph?
So your Royal Highness, the WAVE initiative, as you put it, is bringing ocean regeneration in one human generation. That's a lofty goal. And it starts with, do you know? And this is where the Ocean Central, that dashboard that was created for WAVE, is to tell people, how much do you really know about the ocean? So you go there, and you go there as a scientist, you go there as a student, you go there as somebody who's just interested to know. Then that's the data that's coming from the science side. But it's also matched by the valuation side. What we are doing, and we're releasing soon, is the value at risk. This is what's at risk if you were to lose the mangroves. This is what's at risk if you were to lose the seagrass. This is what's at risk if you were to lose the coral. So people understand what's at stake. Because it's not about the flow only, it's about the stock. Nature is stock and flow. We keep forgetting that. Markets are very good at the flow side. They're not good at the stock side. The stock side, as Ray say, and the ambassador is saying, needs action on the government side. So the WAVE initiative, by making what we need quieter oceans, because if we look at the studies, the whales aren't able to communicate with each other. I mean, the scientists will tell you that the whales used to communicate across the whole ocean with each other. And now they have to compete with the noise from the ships. They have to compete from the noise of, when you're dredging, when you're doing all of these things. So this initiative of a quieter ocean, is important. But it has to, as Ray's saying, it has to be, as we say in economics, incentive compatible. Meaning I, as a builder of a ship, what's my incentive to build a quieter ship? That's where the incentives comes in. How do we create the incentives for the industry to find it in its best interest to build quieter ships? You cannot appeal to them by saying, you got to do the right thing. This is good for rhetoric. This is good from a policy point of view. I spent 25 years at the IMF in policy. But the business side is saying, I still have to make profits. This is costly for me. Why should I do it out of my own volition? Unless a regulation comes down. So you need the regulation side, because that basically sets the parameters of the game. And then what the industry does, says, okay, given these parameters, now what do I need to do? You see, this is how it works. If you leave nature, if you look at all G20 reports, they say nature is a global infrastructure. Now, as an economist, the moment you tell me it's an infrastructure, that means it's a public good. If it's a public good, the markets can never price it, by definition. So you need the action of WAVE, action as we're all talking about here. Again, the governments locally, and working together, harmonizing the metrics, harmonizing how we're going to do it together. Because if one country does it, another country doesn't do it, the industry moves to the other country that doesn't do it, and continue to pollute the ocean. And the ocean is a public good, global public good. So that's why harmonization becomes incredibly important. So Your Highness, your initiative is important in bringing awareness. Why is quiet ocean is important? Not for us, for the life inside that ocean.
Yeah. Can I just say something I'm looking at the clock and we've got very little time, so I'll be so brief. The ocean noise factor is an immense issue, and thank you so much for taking it up. There is no more quiet and pristine a part of the ocean at the moment than the central Arctic Ocean. It's covered in ice, and life's gone on there without being interfered by humans all this time. Trouble is now the Arctic ice is melting. So businesses are starting to look at new shipping lanes. They're looking at oil and gas exploration, deep sea mining, etc. So that's why I have gone to Iceland. I went to the Arctic Forum a few months ago to put this proposition that we have a central Arctic Ocean precautionary pause on any economic activity. Now, with what the geopolitics of what's going on in that area now, you would think I'm crazy. But no, we already have a CAO, the Central Arctic Ocean Fisheries Agreement, where there is a precautionary pause. Everybody in the Arctic Circle has agreed we won't go fishing there until we've done the science. Okay, so I think that's when you talk about keeping the ocean quieter, which is everywhere that's needed, but when you've got somewhere that's silent at the moment and you're going to start introducing industrial noise to it, don't do it until you know what the effect is going to be on that pristine environment.
Ray, a final thought that will leave this room inspired and ready and energized to act.
I would say that it is the thing that we can do in a relatively easy way that's going to have the most enormous impact on our lives. I think the people who are here are being here and inspired and caring in their own ways can make this infectious. And so each in our own ways, we can do deals that are making that happen. And they in their own ways can do things and be thrilled by it. So even if they think about their children or their grandchildren and they watch Ocean Aquanox or Ocean X and so on, it's infectious. So I think there is nothing that we could do that can have a bigger impact more easily even.
Great. Well, ladies and gentlemen, my ask of you is fall in love with the ocean. Save the ocean, but fall in love with it. Thank you.
Thank you.